How's it going, everybody? I'm Ryan from Hellcat Design, and today we're going to be looking at this right here, or we're going to be making this actually. This is just going to be a coaster with some text cutouts. I'm going to make a circle with the names, and then I'm going to put the names in the middle, and then I'm just going to cut it out and show you how to do this basic coaster right here. This also works well for cutting out names of other things and adding in your own logos and stuff like that to stuff you make. But yeah, all right, let's get started. So first of all, what we're going to want to do is I'm actually going to delete the camera and the light. So I'm going to click on the camera, and then I'm going to right click on the light, and then I'm going to hit X and delete them. Then I'm going to grab the cube that's there, hit Tab to go into edit mode, hit G and Z to bring it up on the Z axis, and then hold Control to snap it up to the bottom. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to come out of edit mode and I'm going to hit N on my keypad, and it's going to bring up my little transform panel here, or my item panel, and this will give you the dimensions. Blender's base dimensions, or the units that it usually uses, is real world units. If you come over to the scene properties and click on units, it'll say unit system none. Unit system none means that it's using the Blender internal units, which are equivalent to 1 millimeter a block, so 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. You can also go to metric and imperial, that works just as well, but I usually just stick with the millimeters because that also keeps me in track about how big my items are in comparison to the bed I'm using and so on and so forth. So I'll just keep it on the general Blender units. Alright, so after that, what we're going to do is we're going to measure out about the size of a normal coaster, and that is going to be about 90 millimeters, or about around 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my dimensions here and say 90 by 90 by 3, about 3 millimeters tall. We don't want it too tall. We're just going to be cutting some stuff out. All right, so this is going to be the basic size of our coaster right here. So after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my properties panel, go into my modifiers, click add modifier, and then come down to subdivision surface. This is just going to add in some more vertices and smooth everything out and make the coaster more realistic. So what I'm going to do is turn the viewport and the render up to 3, tab to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to hold Control R, and it's going to create a loop cut. Now I'm going to want to create loop cuts for all 4 sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on there, drag it all the way to the end, and then click it, and then hit G, X, and then I'm just going to bring it over 2, snap it to. You can also see that based off of up here in this section. So if I hit GY, or sorry, GX, and then snap it, you can see I'm going over 2 units. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for all 4 corners. So Control R, loop cut, bring it in all the way to the end, hit GX, hold Control, snap it over 2. Same thing for the Y axis, GY, snap it over 2. GY, snap it over 2. Okay, and then you'll have something that looks like this. Okay. You could also come up and go to smooth shading if you want it to look better in the viewport, but it's not really going to matter. So I'm just going to leave it on flat for now. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode again and do a Control R in the middle. And then I'm actually just going to right click and leave it right in the middle there. And then I'm going to do one more underneath that. So Control R and then click it and then bring it all the way down to the bottom. That is just going to make sure we have a nice flat bottom for the 3D print. And then I'm going to hit 1 on my number pad, and then hit Z, and then come over to where it says wireframe. Or you can come up here and click on your wireframe there. Double click A to unselect everything and hit B. B is your box grab tool, so I'm going to grab everything on the top. Alright, now I'm just going to scroll in and scale it down by hitting S until it looks like it's got a nice little edge to it about right there. Okay. If you want, you could add in another loop cut here if you would like this edge to be a little more secure, but that for now I just want to keep it this nice curved edge the way it is. Alright, and we're almost done with our coaster, the actual build of our coaster. After that, I'm going to come over and hit apply, on my modifier because now I'm done doing all my loop cuts and I'm done doing my basic shape. But what I am going to want to do is I am going to want to cut out a top portion of this off so it's not a curved top. So what I'll do is I'll actually come over to where the, what is that? What panel is that actually? Object Properties panel. And then we're just going to change the name to COASTER. Okay, so this is named Coaster now. All right, then I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to bring in another cube. And then I'm going to hit 1 on my number pad, and then I'm going to just grab it on the Z axis, so GZ, and place it right about there. And then I'm going to hit S and then Shift Z, okay, and that will scale it on everything but the Z axis. Okay, so it'll scale it as a big block, but not scale it on the Z axis. It works the same in all of the other ones. So if I hit S, to scale it, and then I hold Shift X, it'll scale it on everything but the X axis and Y axis and everything else. Okay. All right, so after that, I'm going to hit 1 on my number pad, and I'm going to go into edit mode again, or wireframe mode, sorry. And I'm just going to make sure that this isn't lined up too hard with any of the curves, or it's too close, so I'm just going to bring it down to about there. That'll just cut off the top and make sure the top is nice and flat for us, and that we have some vertices on the top there. Now another thing we can do right now is also add in some loop cuts into the box here, just so that after we cut it out, it'll still be separated in vertices, so that when we do the text, it'll look better. So what we're going to want to do is Control R, and then I'm just going to scroll it up to where it says, right underneath where I'm at, in the very bottom, it'll give you your number of cuts, how many cuts you have. So I'm going to do 30 cuts. I'm going to do 30 cuts. So I'll just scroll up until you hit 30. And like I said, it's right underneath where I am right now. Okay. And then I'm going to go out of edit mode. And then I'm going to hit Z, or come up here and go to your solid view, or not render view, sorry, solid view here, so you can see what you're doing. And then I'm going to click on my coaster here, and then I'm going to go to add modifiers, and I'm going to do a Boolean. Now this is just to cut out this box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that cube and hit H to hide it, and then I'm going to, with the coaster selected, we can actually go and make sure it's stayed as difference and select that cube. Now if you notice, all that did is basically cut out a top portion so it's not as curved. So it just works better when you have cups, and when you go to put the text in and stuff like that, it'll work better for you. So if you come over and hit apply now, and then go into edit mode, you can actually see that it cut out a bunch of square blocks out of the top instead of one flat sheet, which is actually good for when we do the text. It'll actually make it easier for the text and stuff like that. So after that, our coaster is done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to where my cube is and bring that back in by hitting the little eye there. Click on my cube, and then I'm going to hit X and delete it because I don't want my cube anymore. No reason for that. And then I'm going to click on my coaster, and I'm going to hit H to hide it. Or you can come up and hit the little eye. Shift A, and then we are going to bring in our text. Okay, and then I'm going to hit, on my number pad, I'm going to hit period, and that's just going to center my view around the text or whatever you're on. That also works if you're in edit mode, to hit period, and then it'll zoom you in on whatever vertices you're selected. After that, I'm going to go into my edit mode, and I'm just going to type in a bunch of names. Let's see, Angel, Dexter, Zoe, Simon, Parker, and Liam. And I'm just adding in a bunch of names so that we have, we can do it in a circle. Okay. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift A, or actually before I do that, I'm actually going to change my text to whatever font I want. So with my text selected, you can come on down to the little A here and select on that. And then underneath where it says font, if you click on that and then open where it says regular, you can actually find your fonts through your Windows desktop. Like I said, mine's under C, Windows Fonts. Yours could be anywhere else, but I'm actually going to use a different font. So I have another folder with some fonts. So I'm going to use just a different font, but you can choose whatever you want. All right. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come up here to where it says Object Mode, and then I'm going to convert to mesh from curve metasurf text. Now that's just going to take it from the text. So now when we go into edit mode, now we have a bunch of vertices instead of the actual text. We can't edit the actual words anymore, but that's fine. This is exactly what we wanted. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to hit Shift A again and do a curve and circle. And then I'm just going to scale that up a little bit. Actually, maybe a little smaller than that, about there. It doesn't have to be. You're going to end up scaling the circle here in a second, so it's not really that big of a deal. But then I'm going to click on my text here, come over to where it says your modifier panel, click on Add Modifier, and under Deform, there should be Curve. And this is just going to take this text and wrap it around whatever curve you have set. So I'm going to say the Bezier circle by clicking the object in the Bezier circle. And then I can click that circle and actually scale it to make my text match up between the spacings and stuff like that, so it's about the right size. All right. So that looks about right. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift and grab my text and my circle. Then I'm going to hit R and then Z to rotate on Z. And I'm just going to center it so that the names are almost even and it looks okay, because we're going to add in some more text in the middle here in a second. All right, so I'll double click A to get out of that. And then if you click on your text here and then hit Apply, that will apply that circle, and you can actually click on the circle X and delete it now, and your text will stay a circle. After that, I'm going to add in another set of text here. Let's see, text. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before, come over to the A, but instead of having to bring it in again with the folder, you should still have it in the little F here. So you can actually just pull it right in since we already have it in. And then I'm also going to come down here and where it says under paragraph and alignment, where it says left, I'm actually going to change that to center. That will also center the text so that when I do multiple texts on here, it will be even. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in THE, and then I'm going to enter to go down to another line. We're going to do bug no F-A-M-I-L-Y. Okay, bug no family, there we go. I'm going to hit 7 on my number pad to bring me to the top view, and I'm just going to hit G and Y, and I'm going to center that as much as I can, and then I'm going to scale it by hitting S till it's a little bit bigger than the rest of the text, and then hit G, Y. And because of the way the text is set up, I can actually bring in the letters. So what I can do is I can come over here to where it says spacing under the A. And then I can actually do the word spacing, the line spacing. So we're going to be doing, it should be line spacing if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we're going to be doing line spacing and just kind of crunch it a little more together. Just a little bit. So like 0.8, maybe 0.9. Oh, sorry. 0.9. Actually, no, I'm just going to keep it at 1 because that does look decent. It fills in the space really well. And I'm just going to keep it about there. After that, I'm going to do the same thing I did before by coming up to Object, go down to Convert to, and then Mesh from Curve Metasurf Text. Okay, and then we're going to join these two together. So what I'm going to do with my one text selected, I can right-click, hold Shift, and right-click on my other text. And because I want my other text, because it's centered, to be the main one, I'm just going to leave it as is, and by clicking the circle text second. And then I'm going to come over to, I'm actually going to hit Control J. Control J will join these two together. So if you go into edit mode, they're all one solid piece. After that, with everything selected, I am going to go into my search panel here by hitting, let's see, what is it, F3. Okay. And we are going to be looking for, actually no, I don't need to do that. What I need to do with everything selected, I'm sorry, is hold Alt M, and that'll bring up your merge panel, and then we're going to be merging by distance. Now this is just going to take all of the extra vertices that are off from one another. Out in the bottom here it said 31 vertices popped up, but I'm going to actually change it to 0.001 instead of 0.0001. And if you see it says it got rid of 383 vertices removed. That basically just gets rid of all the doubles, everything that's collapsed into each other, all the vertices that are really, really close to each other that don't need to be there. And it makes it easier for when we're about to do our next step, which is extruding this. Okay, so I'm going to hit A to make sure everything is selected, hit 1 on my number pad, and I'm just going to hit E and drag it up, and you can drag it up as big. It doesn't. It just needs to be decently pretty big like that. Okay, so we basically extruded it out. And with that done, we actually want to bring in our coaster again. So I'm going to come over here to where it says coaster and bring my coaster in. And then I'm just going to scale that text up until it's about the size of the inner box that we cut out. So it stays on the flat area because that's what we want. So you scale it until you got yourself some space there. Make sure you have some nice spaces between the edges because you don't want the it to be pinched right on the top like that. So I'm actually just going to leave it about right there. I'm going to hit 1 on my number pad, hit Z, and go into wireframe mode. And then now that this is on the very bottom, I can actually hit G, Z, and snap it up to 1, or straight above me where it says I'm snapping it. It'll say 4 or 5 if you can see that jumping up and down. I'm going to bring it up to where it says just 1, because this is 3 millimeters thick and I want this cutout to be 2 millimeters out of the actual thing, leaving only 1 millimeter between the bottom and the top. After that, I'm actually just going to hit H on my text, and I'm going to come up and go back into solid mode. Then I'm going to click on my coaster, come over to edit mode, or come over to my modifier panel, sorry, and hit add modifier, and we're going to do another Boolean, okay, and this is going to be difference, still, and then we're just going to hit the object and select that text that we added in, and that will legitimately cut out all of our text, and it should do it correctly. If you have any issues with it overlapping and stuff like that, you can actually come over to the threshold and turn the threshold down, and that should fix your problem. And if that doesn't fix your problem, you can also mess with the overlap itself to make it work for you. But since this worked, you can actually see that it cut it out. I'm going to hit apply on that, and then I'm going to come over to my text again, grab it, and then I'm just going to hit X and delete it because I don't need my text anymore. And then there I go. I have a coaster with my cutout on there, and everything looks good. It's the correct size, 90 millimeters by 90 millimeters by 2.5, because we did cut off a part of the top of that, but that's perfectly fine. So 2.546, I can actually even go into this and type in 3, and it will raise it up a little. You don't want to do that by too much because then you can actually distort some of your text and your edges and stuff like that. But if I hit 3 there, it'll just scale it back up on 3. Okay, so after that, we're going to want to add or send it out on the 3D print to be worked on in our slicing program. So what we're going to want to do is, if you don't already have this add-on, just come over to where it says Edit, go down to Preferences, and then under Add-ons, if you type in 3D, so 3D, you should get a set that says our Mesh 3D Print Toolbox. Just click on that and make sure that box is selected, then come over here and hit Save Preferences so that you always have that box there for you. And then you can exit out of your preferences and come over here, and then if you'll notice down here, you now have a 3D print panel. So I don't normally worry when it comes to the analyze, cleanup, transform, or any of those. A lot of the time I found that these tools don't really work so well. Blender's got to kind of work on them. They work okay, and they will give you a generalization of if you have any overhanged faces, any vertices that aren't correct. It tries to fix all the vertices that it can. So, but before I do all that, what I'm going to do is come down to export and figure out where I want to put it. So for now, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. Okay, hit accept. And then I'm actually going to name this because I already have a coaster set up in there. So I'm going to name this coaster A1. Okay. And then before I actually hit export, I also want to make sure this is at STL. Before I hit export, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode, hit A to click on everything, and then I'm going to hit F3 again. And we're going to do REC, and then you should see Recalculate Normals. Recalculate Normals will basically recalculate where the faces are facing and tell it what, if the face is on the inside or the outside. So obviously the cutouts that we did are facing outside currently because we just fixed it. but it could have been facing on the inside, and you could have some issues there later on, like if you go to bring it in your slicer program. So if you just do that real quick by hitting your recalculate normals, and then you should be done with that. That should fix all of your issues there. After that, we're just going to hit export, because now we're going to export it to our desktop. After that, I'm going to actually come over to my slicing program. Now, I use Idea Maker, Cura, and there's a few of them that are really good. People really tend to like Cura. I like Idea Maker because it kind of makes me feel like a little more individualistic. I'm able to add in supports and work on that for other prints and stuff like that. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to add up here in the top corner. I'm going to find where I put that coaster A1 right there. And I'm going to hit open on that. And that's just going to bring it into our 3D program. Now, if you didn't do that recalculate normal, these might be yellow, and that's not that big of an issue. You can always come over to your repair, hit apply auto repair, and usually that'll fix it. But since our model down here is good, we're good. After that, you're just legitimately going to want to make sure that it's about the right size. So 90 millimeters by 90 millimeters by 3 millimeters, that's right. And then you just make sure it's within your print bed size. You can come over and hit start, and then select whatever profile you want, and then hit slice. Now, all that's going to do is slice it and save it for you real quick. And then once you're done with your slicing and saving, you can actually, I'm going to show you the layers that it worked, because I have this set for 100% thickness, or 100%, so that's going to basically, there's not going to be any infill, it's all going to be 100% filled in. The reason we want that is because since this is a coaster, it needs to be durable in case it drops or anything like that, and coasters are dropped more often than people might think. So when you make a coaster, you want to make sure it's 95 to 100% for the infill. Make sure it's nice and dense, and then once it's done, you can come over to preview. Okay, and I'm actually going to go into the preview here. And if you look, you can actually see our text that was cut out of the coaster. You can see it all looks decently pretty well. It looks like we have 3 shells, which is good. That goes all the way around. That's what I wanted. I can actually drop the shell count down to 1, and that will actually make the text look just a touch a little better, but I'm not going to do that for this example. But this is basically it. After that, you can actually see each layer that it cuts down, and then we have a nice base. We have a good base going on, first few layers, and then this comes in, the text comes in, and then it's done. All right, and that's it. That's basically what you're going to be, or basically how to do a customized coaster for people that you can 3D print. All right, thanks for watching. Catch you later.